Negatived. All right, PV3. Any debate? Yes, Mr. Davies.
Sorry, this is, I have this identified as Green Amendment 3. Is this to amend Section 9.3?
Clause 9, amended by deleting lines 4 to 15 on page 9.
Well, if I can speak to this, I haven't had the benefit of hearing Ms. May's argument as to why she proposed this amendment, so I'm just left with my speculation. When I read the amendment, the current section says that it's not a defense to a charge arising out of the contravention of this section that the accused believed that the individual referred to in the subparagraph was 18 years of age or older, unless the accused took reasonable steps to ascertain the individual's age. Now, we're still talking about the distribution section where it is possible for someone 19 years of age to sell a joint to someone 17 years of age and be liable to imprisonment up to 14 years, which I will speak to in a moment as to what I will argue is the complete disproportion of that provision. But because of that possibility, I'm going to speak in favor of this amendment, because what it does is it says that it doesn't matter if the accused believed that the person they were selling to was over 18, unless they took reasonable steps to ascertain the individual's age, which about the only way you can take a reasonable step to ascertain someone's age, I guess, is to ask for ID. So, but I think it's pretty unrealistic at a party, some party that young people are at, for a 19-year-old who wants to sell a joint for $5 to another person, say, can you show me some ID? I think that's unrealistic. I think that it should be a defense to a charge arising under this section that the accused believed that the person was under 18, and I think that question should be left to the discretion of the judge and the courts to determine whether that was reasonable in the circumstances. If the court finds that they didn't think that was reasonable to believe, then they'll convict them. But if they find that someone reasonably believed someone was over the age of 18 and maybe didn't take a reasonable step to ascertain that, which again is beyond me exactly what that would consist of, then they may acquit. But to absolutely strip a defense from someone that they reasonably believed someone was over the age of 18, I think it's essentially adjudicating by Parliament, and I think that's too narrow. I think it's enough to say that it's an offence to sell to someone under 18, and I don't think we should strip a defense from someone. So I would vote in favor of this amendment.
I would like to say, too, Ms. May is under the weather. She intended to be here, but she's not able to be here because of that to help us with that. Mr. McKinnon.
I'm going to oppose this amendment. I'd like to respond to Mr. Davies' comments that, how can a person reasonably believe that a person is of a given age if he took no reasonable steps to find out? I mean, what is reasonable in the circumstances is going to depend on the circumstances. But first of all, selling a joint at a party is already illegal. But secondly, I mean, you have to be responsible for what you do, and if you're giving drugs to someone at a party, you should have a pretty good idea how old they are, and if you don't, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Okay, seeing no further speakers, I'm going to call for a vote on PV3.
Mr. Chair, can I just have a brief response?
Why, sure.
Thank you. That's it's in keeping, I think, with the fact this committee didn't hear from a single 16 to 24-year-old that some people our age are discussing what's reasonable or not currently with 19 and 20-year-olds and 18-year-olds and 17-year-olds at parties. And it's well and good, Mr. McKinnon, sort of take that really, tough love, hardcore approach. But here's the reality of parties. They're probably all drinking. You might have a 19-year-old that's had 4 beer, and there may be someone who, someone who looks much older than 17 or much older than 18, but is actually 17 and a half. They may say, come on, I don't have my ID here. There's peer pressure that goes on. And what I'm saying is, you really want to subject that person in that circumstance up to 14 years in prison? I mean, with some sort of hard moralizing judgment? I mean, all this amendment does is it leaves the defense open, and a judge can make that ruling. But, so in other words, I say it should be a defense that the accused believed that someone was over 18 years of age. And if they can satisfy a judge of that, then that should be left open to that in the system. But, it's a huge gap, in my opinion, of this entire committee study of this bill that we didn't hear from anybody under the age of 30. And maybe if we had, well, certainly we did in 16 to 24. And, although there was a heck of a lot of testimony about how important that group is and how important it is that we know how to communicate with them, nobody thought to ask one. So maybe we could have asked those people, how reasonable or not is it to have a section like this, when a 19-year-old's dealing with a 17-year-old. Maybe that would have helped inform this committee. But from what I can remember of high school is, hammering a 19-year-old with a jail sentence for distributing marijuana to someone 17 and not even allowing them the defense of saying that they believed the person was over 18. Maybe they had friends around that said, oh, they're 18, I know them. Maybe your best friend vouched for them. There's all sorts of things that could lead to your reasonable belief that the person's over 18. I just don't think we should take that defense away.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I'm going to call for a vote on PV3. All in favor of PV3? Are you speaking or voting?
Just a quick reaction to that. So I think we're missing the fact that the provinces and territories can also step into this space and pass their own laws and their own consequences for the age brackets that they decide should not be in possession and on that threshold. And I think it's possible that we could see provincial charges rather than federal charges. So I do think there's some discretion in here that we have yet to see emerge from the provinces and territories. As I think, again, we're in the early stages of implementation. We don't know yet how the PTs will respond to the legislation. So I do think that the worst case scenario that Mr. Davies paints, I don't think is. I think we'll see alternatives come to bear to give more discretion to police officers in the future.
One very quick comment.
Well, I don't intervene, Mr. Chair, because with great respect to my colleague, I don't think that's correct in this case. The bill does delegate some authority to the provinces to make changes, but not in this section. This section says it is not a defense to a charge arising out of the contravention of subparagraph 1A1 that the accused believed that the individual referred to in that subparagraph was 18 years of age or older, unless the accused took reasonable steps to ascertain the individual's age. I'm sorry, but I don't see in any way how a province can change that in any way whatsoever. I mean, and even if the provinces made the legal age of consumption 19 or 20, it wouldn't change this section. And even if it did, I would say that it makes my argument even stronger, because now you'd have to show that, it wouldn't be a defense to say, well, I thought they were over 19. So I respect that people may want to vote against this amendment, but I don't think that they should vote on the basis that they think a province can fix this section, because I don't think that's the case.
Thank you very much for that. Now, all in favor of amendment PV3? All in favor? Surely.
Monsieur Ayoub.
Je ne suis pas en faveur, donc non.
I'm not in favor, so no.
No. Mr. McKinnon.
No.
Mr. Oliver. Ms. Sidhu. Ms. Gladue.
No.
Mr. Van Kesteren. Mr. Weber. Mr. Davies.
Yes. I vote in favor.
Yes pour 1, nes contre 8, 8.
Amendment